Welcome back to Marky RC. This video is part 2 of the Tamiya King hauler build. This beast, absolutely epic looking truck, epic box art as well. I'll be doing this box art. Part 1's already done, that was the chassis build. Now we're on to pages 11 and 12, which is basically putting Tamiya's 3-speed gearbox together. Few people have had a bit of trouble putting these together after reading some of the online comments. It's normally, there's 2 issues that people do wrong. I'll show you on these, on the gearbox when I put it together. Those 2 things that make these gearboxes not work properly. Apart from that, as long as you follow the instructions, you cannot go wrong. So let's get all the parts laid out and start to put the gearbox together. We have the parts all laid out now for Tamiya's 3-speed gearbox for the King hauler. Page 11, fitting all the gears, fitting the selector shaft rings and the selector forks. And we have on page 12, installing the gearbox ends that hold all the gears. Installing the 540 motor. I'll probably be swapping this for a 50 turn brushed motor to give this truck loads of torque, because I'm hoping to run a trailer on the back. Then we've got the gearbox casings that go around to protect all the gears. Both the motors bolted on, gearbox installed, and here we have all the parts laid out. Got our end caps, gear shafts, all the dreaded E-clips, all the internal gears, tiny little, I think it's a 12 tooth pinion there, long drive shaft, not as long as the Grand hauler but still quite a whopper. Bob from Hobby Concepts, I mean some of his trucks are stunning. I've watched a couple of videos, he uses bearings inside his and he says it works perfect, so I put bearings in my Grand hauler and absolutely shifts flawlessly. We've got our selector forks, the selector fork discs that they engage with, and the bar threaded end bars that hold the gearbox together. And then we've got our gearbox casings on the side there. So let's put this 3-speed gearbox together. Right, here we have all those parts I just laid out in the last 2 pages. We have our gear shaft, top gear shaft. We have our bottom gear shaft with all our gear selecting paws on. Just make sure you put quite a bit of grease on the paws so everything runs freely. And what I like to do as well, get yourself a little paintbrush, basically round these rings, just give them a really nice coat of Tamiya's grease. This is just a ceramic grease, comes in the kit. They never give you quite enough, not sure why. It wouldn't take much just to put another little tube in. But doing this around these gears will make everything run a lot smoother and a lot more positive on your gear changes. Like so. Then we've got our end plate with our bearings in. They just press fit in, and then the one at the back, 2 of Tamiya's little tiny nuts and bolts. Just make sure you stick thread lock on them, because metal on metal. And we've also got our selector fork. Now it's a bit misleading on Tamiya's instructions, because inside the rod where the E-clips are in the centre there is a short section of rod and a long section of rod. I've put one of these together before thinking they meant the actual length of the rod, but all they mean, it's going to be hard to see, but the little groove on the end there for the E-clip. But the E-clip on that end is further in, and that's what they mean by long and short, not the actual width of the rod, which is a little bit misleading, but once you put a few together you get the hang of that, because you need an E-clip on there to stop that rod pulling itself out the gearbox. So what I normally do is put in motor end first where the cutout is. I always put the top gear in first, otherwise it's a bit tricky because you have to sort of wiggle the other one around. So pop your top gear in like so, and then you need to line up these selector forks with the selector rings. Make sure you keep the orientation of the rod right, which is that way round with the long end to my right. And a simple case of, it can be a bit fiddly at times, well, exceptionally fiddly. Like so, so the rod, all those selector forks now are engaged. Whoa. And that's a good thing about greasing them as well, they don't come out so easily. A bit slippery. They've all engaged inside the pores now. And then a simple case of make sure you've got both your springs on the end of the rod. Like so. Then spin the whole assembly over. That long rod, the thin rod, goes in the brass bush at the bottom. Like so. Now everything's put into the gearbox. Hold her up on end. Then you get the other end plate. Same again through the brass. Holds everything together. I've pre-thread locked all the ends of the rods, just so that it doesn't take like 3 hours doing a video. Now I should wash my hands because everything is very greasy. And it's a simple case of just doing the gearbox nuts up. It is much easier, like Tamiya saying in the instructions, to put 3 of the side rods on first and try to put them on after you've got the gears in, because it can all go a little bit wiggly. So as you can see, I just go round, put those rods in, do them all up. I won't bother doing all of it, and you get a rough idea. Just make sure you do thread lock those gearboxes, because they will come loose otherwise. Especially like this vehicle, I'll be running lights and sound with Tamiya's multi-function unit. It'll be the first time I've ever fitted one of them, so that's going to be a bit of a baptism of fire. Apparently it's supposed to be very easy, plug and play, and it looks like after the read instructions they are. But back to the free speed. I won't put the other bar in on the video, but as you can see, that gives your gear selection. If I remember rightly, I think that's 2-wheel drive high in the centre, 4-wheel drive high, and then to my right, 4-wheel drive low. And as long as you grease everything, it should run as smooth as that. Those 2 issues I mentioned earlier are these selector forks. Not sure why, but sometimes the washer gets put on the wrong side, or that bar gets put the wrong way round, and then when you go that way with the, what would that be, 2-wheel drive high, that bar comes out the gearbox and is a pain in the backside having to take it all out. So that is pretty much Tamiya's free speed. I'll just go round, dob some more grease in there. Better to be I call it just light coating over the gears. It does make a hell of a difference when you come to run your trucks, as well as making everything nice and smooth, nice and quiet, especially the metal gears. I have found a company online, I'd like to do the night hauler maybe next, so I've got all the hauler collection of the lorries. But I found a company online that make all of these gears. I'm assuming it's in brass, looking at it. They do helical cut gears and they do straight cut. About £25 I think shipped. So I might try a set of them out and then just sand, give the metal gears a slight chamfer just to see how smooth they change. And the other issue that I was saying about is, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the camera, but inside that cog is a brass bush. Sometimes people mount that cog with the bush on that side instead of on that side. Then those gears don't mesh properly and you end up with a very weak gearbox. That's the only other two issues I've ever found when I've taken these apart. When I've been building trucks or restoring 3 speeds like the old Toyotas, and the Blazer was the same. That was built absolutely perfect. I don't think that was ever run. I've already done a video on that anyway. So here we have Tamiya's 3 speed. So I'll get the other bar put on, and then we have an engine casing that goes round it. And if you like, you can run a little bead of sealant round there, and a little bead of sealant round the back face, and make that pretty much sealed. So I'll pop the motor on. Tamiya's standard 540 silver can, but I want to get a 50 turn brush for it so it's got plenty of power, so I can pull a decent sized trailer with a load. So next page, page 13, I'll get all the engine casing on, get the motor on, get the pinion on, show you what that looks like, and then put it into the chassis. Right, we have pages 11, 12 and 13 put onto the chassis now. I couldn't help myself to put the mud flaps on. I think they look wicked. Same with the chrome ones on the front of the wheels. So we've got our 3 speed box in now. Motor. Got our drive shaft underneath. Connected up to 3 speed. Connected the 3 speed servo up. Gearbox casing all on. As you can see, totally sealed all the gears now. No debris can get in there. Motor mounted up high. Beginning to look really nice. So next stages are adding some of the chrome, the fuel tanks. I'll lay those parts out. And then I'm going to have to refer to the multifunction control unit instructions, because as I build the rest of this truck up, I need to add all this light and sounds. So I'll get all the parts laid out and we'll put all those on the chassis. We have all the parts laid out now for pages 14 and 15. We've got all the chrome plated parts, fuel tanks, steps, the air horn, and then we've got steps on this side, the ends of the fuel tanks, and some more steps for the other side, and then obviously the mirror image, so the truck's the same both sides. I've got to make a few alterations to this because I'm running the multifunction kit. So in the multifunction kit, you get a new 5th wheelbase, you get the aluminium bracket, and you also get a release latch. Tamiya supplied obviously the same for their version, but the black latch is a lot thicker, and that's a different shape to fit the multi-function kit, the 5th wheel that comes with it. You also get the switch that activates the sound for air, hitch up and everything else. All of our hardware and bracketry, and then all the instructions on pages 14, as you can see there. And then we have our pages 15, constructing all the tanks. I've got to change, I can either change that step or that step to take the control box that powers the multifunction unit. And in the multifunction kit you do actually get a step that's got a cutout in the front, but I'm not sure whether I'm going to do that or try to mount it in the cab. I think it looks a lot more realistic. If you can't, you know, you're looking up the step and you've got a load of switches, it's going to look a bit weird, but we'll see how that all goes. So there we have all the parts for pages 14 and 15, and all I have to do as we get further on in the build now is start to add all the electronics and all the speaker and everything for that multi-function kit. So I'll get all these parts put onto the truck and then I'll show you what it's going to look like. Here we have all pages 14 and 15 now installed onto the truck. I put the wheels on just to make it look a little bit better. Got all the fuel tanks are on, side steps, and then all the wires poking out there are from the switches to control all the lights and sound. I've also got the fifth wheel that comes in the light and sound kit. That's what the green wire is coming out the back there. That's for when you have air hook up and the trailer hitching up. So this is the end of part 2 of Tamiya's King Hauler build. I mean, these trucks are really cool. Rear view of all the mud flaps. I think with those open wheels it would make, if you got the sort of log trailer with the open sides, because they do the chain kit for it. So next part of the build, I'll be putting all the light and sound in, and then painting the body a really nice metallic candy red. So I hope you've enjoyed part 2 of the Grand Hauler build, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.